Good afternoon, gardeners. It's Sunday, December 13th, and it has been a gorgeous weekend here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. And today we are going to begin an experiment in my garden. We are going to find out what happens when you place kitchen scraps on top of your raised bed and you cover them up with a tarp for several weeks. Now, previously in my garden, I've run an experiment on what happens when you directly bury kitchen scraps into your garden, and I check back 90 days later to check the decomposition rate. And I will make sure to link to that video above so you can follow that along. However, this experiment is going to be a little bit different. Instead of digging up our garden, which goes against the principles of no-till gardening and really disturbs the soil, we're just going to place our kitchen scraps on top. We are going to cover them up with a tarp for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then we are going to remove the tarp and we're going to see what the decomposition rate look like. And in this bed, I had peppers and tomatoes last season. A hard freeze came in last week, killed off the remaining plants in the bed. I just removed them, and now I need to prep them for next season, and I need to put nutrients back into my soil. And because I practice crop rotation, I'm not going to be putting tomatoes and peppers as my next crop in here. I will be putting in cold crops like lettuce, spinach, and other things in late winter that I want to be able to harvest in the mid-spring. So I'm going to re-nutrify my soil by placing all these kitchen scraps down and add nutrients so I can plant my cold crops come February. And inside these containers here, I've been saving kitchen scraps for a couple of weeks, and this is all very nutrient-dense, high-density kitchen scraps. So I have things like eggshells and weeks' worth of coffee grounds, banana peels, ends of celery, some peanut shells, things like that that have a lot of nutrients in them. So we are going to spread all of these evenly on top of our soil and scatter them as evenly as we possibly can. And you can see all of our kitchen scraps down here in the raised bed, and normally you'd want to grind them up really finely and incorporate them into the first inch or two of your soil, but I specifically left them as whole as possible because I really want to be able to see if there's a big difference with the material just sitting on the soil. So here you can clearly see things like banana peels, and you can see things like eggshells. I left them large on purpose. And I also want to amend these with the skeletons of some snap peas right here that were killed off by the hard freeze last week, because snap peas and all peas, for the most part, are nitrogen fixers. So they suck nitrogen out of the air and they store them inside the greenery. So all of that greenery right there is loaded with nitrogen. So I want to put that on top of my soil. And then I also have some radish tops right here that I'm going to add to the tops of my soil as well. So now you can see what everything looks like now that it's been chopped up and layered on top of my garden bed. And I really do not anticipate that those pea shoots or that the stems of the peas are all going to break down because they're so fibrous, but that is no big deal. So I can just remove them if they don't break down within the time period. Most notably, I'm then going to take this bag of cow manure compost. And you can see the label right here. I'm going to take that and I'm going to gently sprinkle it on top of my bed and evenly distribute it. And then I'm simply going to wet the bed down to help begin the decomposition process, because things break down better when they are moist. So now the compost has been applied and everything's been wet down in order to help speed up the decomposition process. And then just to my right here, I have a tarp. So I'm simply going to take that tarp out of the container and I'm going to drape it completely over the bed and use some simple fire bricks in order to weigh it down. So now the bed has been covered with the tarp, and by tarping the bed, this is going to dramatically heat up that soil by trapping all of the sun's energy. That soil is going to get nice and hot for the first few inches. And the three things that I'm trying to accomplish by doing that is to break down the kitchen scraps into compost so I can put new nutrients back in my raised bed for the upcoming season. The second thing is I want to kill off any overwintering pest eggs or any overwintering viruses or bacteria or fungi that is harmful in my soil. So I want to kill that off in the top couple of inches. It's not going to hurt any of the earthworms underneath or any of the good soil microbiology that is several inches down, because that's nice and deep and it's protected from the sun. I'm only trying to kill off the bad things, the seeds and the pest eggs on the surface. And the third thing that I want to accomplish by doing this is I want to kill off any of the weed seeds or any of the seeds from the things that I've been growing inside this bed all year. So I'm trying to sterilize any of the seeds that may have blown from weeds in the top layer of soil, or any of the tomatoes and peppers or marigolds that I had in here, because I don't want a mess of volunteer plants coming up. So those are the three things that I'm trying to accomplish by tarping my raised bed. And again, ideally, you'd want to mix the kitchen scraps in with the first inch or two of your soil, but I didn't do that because I want to show just how well the breakdown of the nutrients are. If it breaks down well on top, it's going to break down even better if you mix it into that top layer of soil. So keep that in mind. So we will check back in February when I go to plant all new vegetables in this raised bed, and we will see how the tarp performed. It's Monday, February 15th, and today is the day of the big reveal. It has been 64 calendar days since I placed this tarp on this bed, and I haven't moved it. It hasn't budged at all. So that's basically almost 2 months perfectly. So now we're going to pull this tarp off, and we're going to see just how good or bad the decomposition rate was on the produce that we put underneath it. But before I pull this tarp off, I just want you to understand that this tarp was on here from December 13th to February 15th, which is pretty much the coldest period in the entire year. So soil microbiology is everything when it comes down to decomposition. So the soil microbiology right now is going to be the slowest that it is all year. No matter what the result that we see, if you chose any other time of the year, it's going to be warmer, therefore the breakdown is going to be faster. So this is really a worst case scenario for you. We're also having an extremely cold and wet winter, far below average. So no matter what the result is right here, expect better if you were to do this in the spring, summer, or fall. And here we can see the bed. As expected, most of the pea vines are still visible, and I can still see some eggshells, but overall it looks like pretty much all the rest of the kitchen scraps that I placed in here have broken down. I'm pretty impressed. I'm not really seeing any large pieces here. I thought I would still see some of the avocado peels or the banana peels since they're so thick, but I really don't see any of that. All of the leaves have decomposed, so aside from the eggshells, which are very difficult to break down, and the very fibrous pea vines, I'm not seeing a whole lot here. And considering how horribly cold it's been all winter, I'm really surprised how much this is broken down, to be honest. Hopefully this will be a good side-by-side comparison of what things look like both before and after the 2 months underneath the tarp. So my original plan was tarping this garden would prepare the soil to plant my cool weather crops for the spring, and in here I have things like cabbage and broccoli and spinach and lettuces and chard, but it's just been so very cold that everything is just behind this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to retarp this garden for another 2 or 3 weeks, or however long it'll take for my seedlings to mature enough to become transplants, and then once they are mature enough for transplants, I'll take the tarp off for the final time, and I'll remove the last bit of these pea vines, and I'll move them into my compost pile where they can complete the breakdown. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this method considering how cold and dreary and rainy and not sunny it's been. I'm surprised that there's this much breakdown, and I really think these tarps are an absolutely fantastic way to accelerate the breakdown and decomposition of kitchen scraps in your garden without going through the hassle of burying, without disturbing the soil level, and you can even do this in the winter. And I'm really happy to find out that this is such a success, because I did the same thing to this bed over here, which I am preparing for some tomatoes later in the season. And I also have another bed here that I've just about emptied out and harvested everything that I had growing in it, that I'm starting to place down kitchen scraps, because I'm going to put yet another tarp over this. And I'm trying to get this soil ready for the growing season as well, because spring is creeping up on us very quickly. Overall, I'm considering this garden tarping experiment to be a tremendous success. Even in the dead of winter, it attracts enough heat to really get your soil energized and break down things very quickly. Really impressed by this, and I will be using this method pretty much from now on. I purchased 3 or 4 tarps so I can rotate my beds, and I think this method is going to work even better in the spring and summer when the temperatures are a lot warmer. So no matter what size your garden, you can probably use tarps to your advantage, even if you just do sections at a time. This is a great way to rapidly break down kitchen scraps, and then you don't have to do things like dig up your garden and disturb the soil. You can use this method alongside no-till if you're into that sort of thing. So everyone, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe for future updates and more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden, they're all linked in the Amazon storefront in the video description. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Dale's upstairs on his bed right now, but I know how to get him running downstairs really quickly. If there's one thing Dale loves, it's a walk, and all he needs to do is just hear his leash. Here he comes. Oh, there you are. Did you hear something? Did you hear something? Did the candy inspector hear something? Does he want to burn off a few calories? Hey, Dale. Dale, do you want to go for a walk? Dale, sit. Do you want to go for a walk? You want to go for a walk? Dale, you want to go for a walk? Oh, I can't tease him anymore. We have to go for a walk. He's excited.